Hello there and welcome friends. This guide is all about what I consider to be the best beginner's class in Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Apologies for the background noise, as there is a party going on nearby and I can't do anything about the loud sound. Anyways, Hunter is a very stacked class, and the best part is how early you can get a lot of your power. As soon as level 1, 2 and 3 even. So perfect for beginners because after all, the beginning of the game tends to be the toughest part, as you might not already know how the game plays, the game system and all of the mechanics, but Hunter is here to help you have a very smooth early game experience. First, we gain a very powerful pet as soon as level 1. In this case, I'm picking the Leopard. The Leopard alone can easily carry you through the early game, and he also evolves the earliest of all animal companions at level 4 instead of 7. Even better for new players. He has 3 base attacks just at level 1, that's triple the attacks of a normal character. He also has very high attack bonus because of his extreme dexterity and weapon finesse, and does actually trip on his first attack, a bite, for an easy time knocking enemies down. Lastly, he can also achieve extreme amounts of armor class. One of the highest of all of the pets, if not the highest, and this is with little investment. You won't really need to do anything for your Leopard to be good at tanking, besides casting some buffs. In this example here, he has 97 armor class, and all of these are long duration buffs, that's right. Everything here lasts around 1 minute per level to 1 hour per level. That's how good the Leopard can be. Now the Hunter's power isn't just his pet. Just at level 2 he can already choose the very powerful Outflank ability, which most characters, even fighters, can only get the earliest at level 4. And as soon as level 3, you'll get to share the Outflank feat with your Leopard, so both of you will benefit from plus 4 attack bonus against flanked targets. Starting from level 3, you also gain a lot of very powerful teamwork feats for free, and you also share each one of these with your Leopard. This can make a big difference, after all they are free teamwork feats, and some of them are extremely powerful in setting up strategies like generating a massive amount of attacks of opportunity for your party, for many free attacks per round. Lastly, the Hunter is also a spellcaster, so he can cast spells up to level 6. His spellbook is mostly the druid and ranger spells, and has a lot of very powerful buffs that are sure to enhance your game experience. Alright, so let's get started on our Hunter build. Now for this build in particular, I'll be going with the default Hunter. My preferred archetype is actually Divine Hound, because you can get a dog, and also because you can get a judgment ability and also share it with your pet. And I already have a guide for LAN explaining all you need to know about Divine Hound. The reason I'm picking default Hunter though, well, first because it has simpler progression than Divine Hound, which is better for beginners, and second, you can actually choose any pet. Divine Hound is limited to the dog and the wolf, and while those are the best pets overall, this build is meant to have as much power as possible from the early game to help new players. And with the normal Hunter, we can actually pick the Leopard pet, and as I said before, Hunter is overall a very stacked class, and it will help you learn a lot of the game mechanics. Alright, so let's pick the normal Hunter, human as usual for the extra feat, which helps a lot in the early game. As for background, go with Pickpocket to increase your initiative. And for ability scores, this build will be focused on two-handed weapons with reach, as they do help quite a lot in the early game because you can simply leave your Leopard to tank for you while you attack from safety behind your pet. So 19 strength, 12 dexterity, 14 constitution. Now I also recommend you start with something like 11 to 12 intelligence and around 13 wisdom. The reason is that as a trickster we can actually get a full scaling wizard spellbook later on, and it's going to be based on your intelligence. So to cast level 9 wizard spells, we need at least 19 intelligence. So with around 12, we can later increase this to 19 through access to headbands and also the Tome of Intelligence, and the elixir you can get that also enhances your intelligence by plus 2. For skill points, athletics, perception, lore nature, and the other points are up to you. You can certainly go with trickery and stealth, for example. Even if you don't have high dexterity, there's a lot of boosts that we can get from gear that highly increase both of these skills. Or even persuasion, but we won't have high charisma. Knowledge word is also another choice. As for your level 1 feats, as usual for any two-handed build, power attack, and then cleave. This way, as soon as level 1, you can already have pretty much 2 attacks per round, which is amazing. As for your pet, let us pick the Leopard, of course. When it comes to spells, Hunter is actually a spontaneous caster, much like sorcerers and oracles. What this means is, they learn new spells as they level up, they cannot scribe scrolls to their spellbook like wizards, and you can cast any of these spells through a shared pool of uses. Well, for level 1 at least, Cure Light Wounds, and also Magic Fang to increase the attack of your Leopard, and Leopards do have 3 attacks just at level 1. For deity you can pick almost anything, but this build in particular is going Trickster, so pick one of the deities that allow Trickster alignments. Kaden is always a good choice, and Kaden as a god actually does have a choice to support you in one of the hardest early game battles, so keep that in mind. And then Chaotic Good. As soon as level 2, we certainly want to go with Outflank as this is a melee build. And Outflank is a very powerful feat that we'll get to share with our pet at level 3. For another spell, go with Acid Maw. This enhances our pet's bite, so the Leopard's bite, with acid damage per round. And because a lot of the early game enemies are cultists, they will take full damage from this. It does have somewhat low duration at 1 minute per level, but we'll soon be able to increase this as we level up. At level 3, pick Cleaving Finish. This way whenever our hunter kills an enemy, we get a free attack. So when you consider Cleave, that's around 3 potential attacks we can get at early levels, very useful for the beginning of the game. Now at level 3, hunters also start getting their free teamwork feats. And these feats are amazing. This is also when they actually share the feats with their Leopard pet. So we won't need to pick any of these teamwork feats with your pet. We already have Outflank, which is one of the best teamwork feats. As for another one, be sure to pick Shake It Off, as to highly increase our saving throws. For another spell, pick Lead Blades. This can highly increase the damage of your attacks, especially two-handed weapons. For level 4, be sure to increase Strength, and this is also what you should be increasing on all of the other levels, so at level 8, 12, 16 and 20. At level 4 we also get access to level 2 spells, and the best ones here, at least at the beginning, are certainly Barkskin for a very huge armor class buff to all our characters, and this does have extreme duration, so even at the low levels it will last you for the whole dungeon. For another pick, I would go with Lesser Restoration to help you heal ability damage, and some of the early enemies do inflict some annoying ability damage. For level 5, go with Combat Reflexes. Combat Reflexes will actually increase the number of attacks of opportunity you can make per round, based on your dexterity bonus. Attacks of opportunity are extremely powerful in this game, and with some teamwork feats like Outflank and later on Seize the Moment, you can generate a massive amounts of them per round. For another great level 2 spell, go with Sense Vitals. This can give you sneak attack of a maximum of 5d6 at level 15, just as if you were a rogue. The issue is that it has very low duration, 1 round per level, so save this for tough battles or boss battles and try to cast it before battle starts. For a level 6 bonus teamwork feat, pick Seize the Moment. And once again, this will also be shared with our Leopard, and it further helps you in generating extra attacks of opportunity. For another level 2 spell, well, you can pick one of the animal buffs, but I would rather leave these for a character like Amelia or a cleric. I would pick Natural Rhythm, which is another great low duration buff for pets, but once again try to save this for later when you have higher duration. At around level 7 is when I would actually start going into Faux Shards. This build is meant to use glaives at the beginning of the game, because there are very powerful glaives that you can find as soon as chapter 1. Faux Shards are a superior weapon, however, because they have reach, just same as glaives, but also way higher critical range. So pick exotic weapon proficiency and then Faux Shard. As for another level 1 spell, go with Unbreakable Heart, because this can actually remove and make you immune to confusion. At level 7 we also get our first level 3 spells. For the first one I would pick Greater Magic Fang, as this can help enhance the natural attack of your pets, and it does have very high duration of 1 hour per level. Besides that, Resist Energy Communal, a very powerful buff to reduce energy damage you take, and this applies to all of your allies. And since the hunter is a spontaneous caster, he can cast this whenever you want. For another level 3 spell, pick Protection from Energy Communal. For a level 9 feat, go with Weapon Focus and Faux Shard. As for another teamwork feat, Coordinated Maneuvers, because this can increase the chances of our Leopard tripping the enemy with his bite attacks. For another level 3 spell, where we can go with something like a Million Stride Greater to give your party members concealment, but they need to be close to you. Your other choice of level 2 spell at level 10 can be anything. I'll pick Effortless Armor just so you can use medium armor and not take a penalty to movement speed. We also get our first level 4 spells, and these are great. There are many good choices here. The first one, unless you have a character like Amelia or Nenio who can also cast it, would be Animal Growth, a very powerful pet buff. Besides that, Aspect of the Wolf, a unique hunter and druid spell, also ranger, that can actually give you Trip as a swift action. Now a swift action means you can do it and then also perform all of your attacks in the same round. And Trip can be very useful because it knocks the enemy down, giving them a -4 penalty to armor class against melee attacks, and also proccing an attack of opportunity from everyone around it after they try to get up. At level 11, pick Improved Critical, and then Fall Shard, to increase our 4 shards critical range from 18 to 20 to 15 to 20. That's a lot of criticals you'll be getting, especially as we enhance it further later on with the aid of the special Trickster Mythic Path feats. For another level 1 spell you can go with anything really. I'll pick Long Strider to increase our movement speed. As for another level 4 spell, Echolocation, so we can bypass enemy concealment. By this point in the game we already picked basically the best of the teamwork feats. There are some decent trip feats, but this build doesn't really have space to get trip because it requires certain intelligence, and then combat expertise, and then the trip feats. So you can go with back to back, and also freedom of movement as another level 4 spell. Now before getting into level 13, remember that as usual for trickster builds, you want at this point to have picked both perception rank 1 and 2 tricks at mythic rank 4. So that now at level 13, we can get started in our Trickster critical feats, the first being Improved Critical Fall Shard. Now at level 13 we also get our first level 5 spells, and there's 2 great picks here. The first, Death Ward, a very powerful buff that can actually block energy drain, so negative levels, one of the most annoying status effects the enemies inflict on you. Besides that, Genie Kind as well, a very powerful self buff that can enhance your main melee attack with one of these elements. Because we also have the Acid Maw spell as a hunter, by combining this with Genie Kind, just one version of Genie Kind really, you can actually proc the Elemental Barrage mythic ability, which we'll be getting for our ranger later on during Mythic Progression. So let us pick Death Ward and Genie Kind. For more spells, Fangs, which is one of the most overpowered spells in the game, but it does require a proper setup, so to really benefit from Fangs, you will need a Paladin with Mark of Justice, and also the Greater Enduring mythic ability, which you won't get for our hunter. Still it can be useful, so long as you have a Paladin at the very least. And I already have a guide explaining what makes this so powerful, that you can find here to the side and down below in the video description. For level 15, another Trickster feat, Improved Critical Fall Shard. And also Coordinated Defense. And also the Summon Large Elemental spell, just so you can have a summon because the other spells are rather disappointing. And now we also get our first level 6 spells. I recommend you go with Mass Cat's Grace because there aren't that many casters that can get access to the Cat's Grace spell. And also Dispel Magic Greater. It might not seem like this, but hunters actually have full caster level based on their hunter class. So a level 16 wizard or sorcerer will actually dispel spells exactly the same as a level 16 hunter. At level 17, our last trickster special feat, Improved Critical Improved, Fall Shard of course. As for more level 6 spells, where you can go with Stone Skin Communal, but at this point, Camellia, Nenio and other characters will already have been able to cast it way before us. Honestly, you can also go with Cure Light Wounds Mass. It's a little bit of heal, but at least it's always going to be useful if you need it. For another Teamwork feat at level 18, you can go with anything. I'll pick Allied Spellcaster. And also Summon Huge Elemental here. At the very least, summons can provide some meat shoes for us. Now at level 19 we get our last feat. It can really be anything, but in the case of a Trickster, I recommend you pick Metamagic, completely normal spell. This will let you decrease the spell level of any of your spells by a -1. So for example, level 1 spells will become level 0, which turns them into cantrips, and cantrips have infinite uses. At level 20, our final increase in strength, and any spell you want here. I'll go with Flame Strike, the same for another level 6 spell. I'll just pick another summon, as you can actually summon multiple creatures with this. Alright, now let's talk about the Mythic Progression for our Hunter. As usual, try to go with Instrument of Freedom, which is the AZATA thematic ability. There is no consequence to picking a different first Ascension ability than that of your Mythic Path, and we are going Trickster later instead of AZATA. But Instrument of Freedom is a very powerful buff that scales in both uses and duration with your number of Mythic ranks. You can't buff yourself with it, but you can buff all of your other allies, ranged characters and pets included, for a very nice amount of holy damage per hit. For your first Mythic ability, I would go with Ever Ready to further enhance our attacks of opportunity. For your level 2 Mythic Power attacks to highly increase our damage, especially as we are two-handing, for even higher damage boost, up to plus 30 at max level. For your third Mythic ability, well, this is a pet-focused build, so be sure to go with Mythical Beast, which can highly increase our Leopard's physical scores and even allow it to penetrate almost any damage reduction the enemy might have. This does scale with our mythic rank, so our pet will gain a very powerful scaling buff. For your first trickster mythic trick, well, remember that I already have a guide covering all of these tricks and how they work that you can access to the side here or down below in the video description, so I'll keep it simple for this guide. Pick Knowledge Arcana rank 1 first. For mythic rank 4, as usual, Improved Mythic Critical and then Fall Shard to highly increase our Fall Shard's critical damage. As for your mythic tricks, this is very important. Perception rank 1 and then Perception rank 2, as this is what will let us pick the very powerful Trickster Special Critical feats. For Mythic level 5, be sure to pick Elemental Barrage. This can add quite a massive amount of damage per hit to every single one of your main attacks, and remember, as a hunter we can actually get 2 elements on our attacks for easy proccing. Acid Maw, which treats your character as the source of the damage, not your pet, and then Genie Kind. You can of course also use Genie Kind multiple times, but this is probably an oversight or a bug, and I imagine they will change this in later patches. Or not, but anyways, even if they change it, we still have another way of proccing Elemental Barrage. Not to mention the Shockfall Shard that you can get at Chapter 3. So by just a single cast of Genie Kind and that Shockfall Shard, that will be enough for Elemental Barrage. For another trick, Athletics 1 rank to help with our saving throws. For a Mythic level 6 ability, well, we don't really have any Mythic feats that are very powerful. You can certainly go with Flawless Attacks or Mythic Weapon Focus, but they aren't going to make that much of a difference. What I recommend you do is pick Extra Mythic Ability and then Mythic Charge. Charge can be a very powerful ability, and I already have a guide here on how you can fully maximize your charge strategy by charging out of battle to catch the enemy unaware flat-footed for a free attack with all your charging party members. For tricks here, infuse Magic Device and then reuse Magic Device so we can get the Wizard Spellbook on the next level. By Mythic level 7, we pretty much already have some of the strongest Mythic abilities, so the choices are now more personal and up to you. I like leaving abilities such as Inspirational Leader and Leading Strike to other party members like Scylla. You can certainly go with, let's say, Archmage Armor for higher armor class, or even Last Stand. Well, I'll actually be picking Last Stand for now. It is still a very useful feat, especially in the late game where enemies get way more damage. So for a new player it can still be of use, and you can actually pick this earlier as well if you prefer. For more tricks, Knowledge World 1, and then use the Magic Device rank 3 for our Wizard Spellbook. For another mythic ability at level 8, I would actually go with Ascendant Element and then Fire. The reason is, at this point we can actually get 2 fire enchantments on our attacks. The first from Genie Kind and the second from the Firebrand spell. But it's not really necessary. As I said, you can pick Archmage Armor or any other ability you want. Even something like Abundant Casting and Improved Abundant Casting if you want more spell slots. Or also Enduring and Greater Enduring spells if you want 24-hour duration on your buffs. For another trick, Law Religion 1 and then Knowledge World 2. At last we are at Mythic level 9, our last Mythic for all intents and purposes, as for most characters once you get Mythic 10 there really isn't anything left to fight besides the final boss, at least before the DLC is released. So I'll be going with Archmage Armor just for high armor class, but as I said before, it's not really needed. And you can also pick something like Unrelenting Assault for higher damage, although in our case at this point in the game most battles will be over in a single round, so it's just an effective +2 bonus to damage rolls. For another trick, Lore Nature rank 1. Well, if you went with Trickery as a skill, then you want Trickery 1 rank and Trickery rank 2, so we can actually dispel enemy buffs, and at this point in the game there are some bosses that have a massive amount of pre-buffs. If you didn't go for Trickery, then you can pick Lore Religion rank 2. For some useful domain powers, one of my favorites is the Law domain because it grants you the Axiomatic property on weapon attacks, which means extra damage against demon enemies, so chaotic aligned enemies. Alright, now let's talk about gear choice for our hunter, Trickster. As usual, Valex's Magnifying Amulet, but during the early game you can also go with Amulets of Natural Armor, for example, if you don't want to bother casting Barked Skin. For armor, during the late game we don't really need any armor, but for the early to mid game you can go with Mithril Chain Shirts, or also Breastplates, and even Mithril Breastplates. For the belts that increase both your strength and constitution. As for gloves, as a two-handed character, Francis gifts are pretty good. But if you want to save this for dual wielders, you can also go with the embroidered gloves for +3 to armor class and saving throws, and I already have a guide on how to get these special gloves. As for boots, run X sacrifice as usual for the high dexterity bonus and all of the other neat boosts you get. But if you like charging, you can also use the boosts of Stampede. For your helmet slot, well, in the early game, there isn't a point in getting intelligence because you won't have the Wizard Trickster spellbook. So you can go with helmets that increase your armor class, or the rage bonus if you have a SKALD, but mostly headbands of wisdom to increase our wisdom, which is our main spellcasting attribute as a hunter. The goggles of piercing gaze are always useful because of the bonus against outsiders, so demons. As usual, cloaks of resistance, the highest you can find for saving throws. The ring of evasion, as we do have somewhat decent evasion as a hunter. And lastly, the ring of imminent demise to increase the power of our two-handed weapons. For braces, I like going with abruptum slot to increase our sneak attack damage, and as a trickster we do get free sneak attack progression. As far as weapons, in the early game you can certainly use glaives. For the mid and late game, I recommend you go with fauchars for the very high critical range. Almost half our attacks will be critical hits, such as the Mighty Blow of Good and the +5 and 3 versions of Finian. And I already have a guide explaining everything about fauchars, including where to find these, and even also on how to upgrade Finian, so please be sure to check them out. As far as quick slots, the Wand of Heal, because we have infinite uses of this with Use Magic Device rank 2. The Dragon Familiar to increase our elemental damage for even more elemental barrage proccing. The Luck Dice for a few nice luck bonuses. And lastly, the Signet of House Vespertilio to increase one of your skills. Now as far as your Wizard spellbook, assuming you pick Use Magic Device rank 3 as a trickster, well, I've talked about this a lot of times, so I'll try to keep it simple. For our cantrips we have useful buffs like Mage Armor, Shield and True Strike. For level 1 spells, Sense Vitals, lowered through completely normal meta magic. For level 2 spells, Mirror Image. Level 3 spells, Greater Invisibility, also lowered through normal meta magic. Level 4, Genie Kind. Level 5, the Transformation buff, which can actually turn your hunter into a high base attack bonus character by equalizing your base attack bonus to your character level, just like a fighter. This will block spellcasting while it lasts, but it doesn't really matter for a hunter because we just want to prep buff and then attack. For level 6, more castings of Transformation. Level 7 we have some Firebrands for more fire damage and elemental barrage proccing, and the Ice Body spell for critical hit and ability damage immunity. Level 8, mostly Sea Mantle for the very powerful +8 bonus to armor class, and a few protection from spells, but they don't matter that much. As for level 9, some Foresights for the neat insight boost to armor class, and also one casting of Heroic Invocation, but you can leave this for Nanny, Darren and other characters. Alright, now let's talk about how to build our Leopard pet. As I said before, Leopards are extremely strong in the early game, and they are still very powerful in the mid to late game. I already have a pet guide explaining most of the pet mechanics, how to buff them, how to equip them, so be sure to check that, as I'm going to keep it simple here. So for your archetype you want to go with Bully. For skills I would recommend Mobility, as Leopards have very high dexterity, and then Perception to help you find hidden items and so on. Now your first Leopard feat should definitely be Weapon Finesse, to make use of our Leopard's very high dexterity, even at level 1. For level 3, go with Fury's Fall to enhance our Leopard's trip attacks, by adding its dexterity modifier to the final trip result. At level 4, be sure to increase our Leopard's pet intelligence by 1, so 3, so we can get access to some teamwork feats. And yes, I do know that Hunter shares his teamwork feats with the Leopard, but some of the tripping feats can only be gained by the Leopard, as we didn't get trip on our Hunter, so it is still useful. For level 5, go with Combat Reflexes to later enhance our attacks of opportunity. And as a Leopard, well, we get a massive amount of them because of our very high dexterity. Now at level 7 you can pick Piranha Strike. This is basically power attack for dexterity characters, and because our Leopard has a nice number of attacks per round, it can result in a decent increase to its damage. At level 8 and the other levels, just keep increasing dexterity. At level 9, pick the Tandem Trip feat, assuming you also have another pet that can trip the enemies, such as your wolf or your dog. And as I do often have more than one pet, this feat is very useful, because whenever they attempt a trip attack, which they get for free on their bites, they will roll twice and pick the best results, thus highly increasing the chances of you tripping the enemy. At level 11, the choice is simple: Improved Critical and then Bite. The reason we are going with Bite first, although our Leopard does have 2 extra claw attacks, is that his attacks of opportunity will also be bites. At level 13, Improved Critical and then Bite, as we are going Trickster, which means our Leopard will also benefit from our special Trickster critical feats. just like all of our party members. And now at level 15, improved critical and then bite, another trickster critical feat. As for level 17, the last of the trickster feats, so improved critical improved and then bite. Now for our last feat at level 19, I would pick improved initiative to further enhance our leopard's initiative. As a fun fact, you can actually ride your leopard by, for example, casting the legendary proportion spell on him,
I'll take care of it.
which will turn him into large size.
Absolute.
So your hunter, who is medium by default, will be able to ride him just fine. As for around level 4, when the leopard becomes medium, you can simply use reduce person on your hunter to make him small, so you can also ride your leopard. Now, how to play as this build? Well, because the focus is the early game for beginners, we are actually at the early game here, at the very start of the first dungeon, the shield maze. As far as equipment, be sure to equip your hunter with glaives. Take this masterwork glaive here, for example, where you can find it in the first battle of the first dungeon. It doesn't get any earlier than that. And glaives are actually reach weapons, so their attack range, the big yellow circle surrounding us, we can actually attack decently far away. And if we enlarge our character, such as by having CAVALIER cast Enlarge Person on us, we get even higher reach, so we can attack from far away. This way we can simply have the enemies focus on our leopard, while we attack from safety with our hunter. And our attacks will certainly deal decent amount of damage as well. And for the battle examples, we are actually on core. I don't really recommend as a beginner that you play on anything above that. If you already have experience with Pathfinder, then you can go with core. If you don't, then I suggest you go with normal. Now, as far as the core on how to play this build early on, it is very simple really. First, we have our very powerful pet, and the leopard is so busted that, just look at this, we are just level 2, and even then we already have 28 armor class, and notice how the only buff we have really is mage armor, which you can easily get through potions. And it does last for 1 hour of real time, so more than enough. We also have plus 10 to attack bonus just at level 2, and 3 whole attacks per round. Even if our damage isn't that high, the early game enemies don't tend to have high hit points, and our leopard can still easily trip the enemy on his first bite attack to knock them down. Our damage will also increase by a lot as soon as we reach level 4, because that is when we get the leopard's dexterity modifier added to his damage instead of strength. As far as your hunter, because we do get cleave at level 1, be sure to turn it on, and all you have to do is right click the cleave icon with your mouse so that you put it into autocast, so whenever we attack, we also attempt to cleave a nearby enemy. Now you might have noticed, as soon as level 1 your hunter has the animal focus ability. With this, you can permanently buff your pet with a lot of different stuff. The main use for a leopard at the early levels is to choose Animal Focus Tiger. To turn it on, all you have to do is click on it, so now it's on. And at the early levels, it gives our leopard plus 2 to his dexterity, thus enhancing its armor class and also attack bonus, and even damage later on as soon as level 4. And this does increase to plus 4 and plus 6 as your hunter gains levels. Also, if you are a beginner during the early game, I strongly recommend you check my How to Charge guide that is linked to the site here and in the video description down below, because it is basically one of the most vital strategies you can have for the early game. To put it simply, all you have to do is charge at the enemies out of battle, so notice how we have already detected these enemies here, but battle has yet to start. All you have to do is charge with all of our characters. The leopard will go for the wizard here, Wendwag for the sharpshooter, so let's see how it goes. Notice how battle has yet to start and we are already charging at the enemy. So battle has started now, but because we have already charged, we actually gain a free attack before initiative actually rolls. Here's how it goes. Notice how we are already attacking and we already killed all the enemies there. And there we go, so our character's initiative has even rolled and we already killed everything.
Do not fear! Do not waver!
Is that a trap?
Notice how he got knocked down by a leopard, and then we actually got an attack of opportunity both from our leopard and our character as the enemy tries to get up after being knocked down. This is why getting tripped on the leopard's bite is so powerful. It is all very simple really, simply send your pet ahead so the enemies focus on him, and our leopard does have very high armor class. And after that, flank the enemy with your hunter and all of your other characters. For example, here's how it goes.
We are the light. They are
And
the
we have just
darkness.
charged with the Leopard and our Hunter. We could also have done it with our other characters. So our Leopard actually procced his strip attack, so the enemy was knocked down. Now our Hunter attacked and got a free hit, so our attack chained to a nearby enemy. This might not seem like much, but it truly helps you in the early game. After all, these are just 2 characters, we still have all of our other party members. We already got an attack of opportunity as the enemy tried to get up. And there we go. As you gain more levels, don't forget to empower your Leopard with more defensive buffs, such as Bark Skin from CAVALIER as soon as she reaches level 3, Shield of Faith from Divine Casters like Darren and Sociel, Magical Vestment also from Divine Casters, and so on. Now if you are interested on other ways of how to maximize your party, remember that I also have guides both on how to increase your attack bonus to the max and also your defenses, so that you can get multiple layers of defenses, not just high armor class. Alright, so this was it for my beginner's class guide, everyone. I hope I've managed to show you how powerful a hunter can be in the early game, especially if you are a new player, for a very smooth gameplay experience. If you've enjoyed this video, as usual, please remember to subscribe, like, and even become a member for access to some exclusive perks. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.